Good morning, everybody. We're going to begin the property committee on 17th. Give me a second. I'll share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
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 Okay, so we're going to start off. We have 4 agenda items today, and we have 2 people joining us that will do presentation. We have Dan. I say your name wrong all the time, Dan. I'm sorry.
D'Amico.
And Doug Taylor. Dan is from Schrader Group, and Doug is from Dewey. So we're going to start off with the high school LGI project. And then we're going to move on to presentations. There will be 2 presentations, again, one from Doug and one from Dan on the middle school renovations and additions project. We'll get an update there. And then we'll go into another presentation by Doug, who will go over the capital improvement updates that are happening within the district that Dewey is spearheading. And then we'll hand it over to Mr. Watley so that he can give an update on the operations and capital projects that are happening within the district. So we're going to start with the LGI project and just go over a few things from that purchase that we did in that project that's happening there. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lutz.
Good morning, everybody. So there was a couple questions that came out of the presentation we previously did on the LGI project. So we just want to clarify some things. So looking at the warranty information, the warranty on the equipment ranges from 1 to 3 years. The 1 year would be more for minor equipment like battery packs, microphone cases. And then the major equipment, most of it has a 3-year warranty. That's the access points, networking equipment, and the video board. For the video board, being the largest cost, they actually provide 10% replacement panels for the video board. So that would give us 14 replacement panels. So if a panel does go bad, we're able to replace it very quickly. We take one of the replacements, we pull out the bad one, put the new one in, and then we'll send that panel out for repair. And within those 3 years, it'll be repaired at no cost. And then the nice thing is we have those replacement panels if something does go down. The expected life of the video board is 100,000 hours, which if we leave it on all the time, which we will not, is 11 years. So it's got a long lifespan. As for training, Illuminated Integrations will provide training, which is part of the scope of the project. That cost was $1,350. They'll train anyone on the team, in one of the facilities, anyone that we need to know how to utilize that room. The QSys control system that we talked about was like the Extron system that could be quite costly if there needs to be changes made to the way the system runs. That training is at no cost. It's free online training that anyone on the team that we want to have it can have that training, so we won't incur any costs for making changes to the control system. As for budgetary costs for equipment for repairs and maintenance, in the technology, we have a budget of $25,000 every year for any type of repair or maintenance that we need on equipment. We annually look at that budget line to see if we need to adjust it in any way. So once we're out of warranty with the LGI, we will look to see if we need to increase that budget line at all. But the goal is to keep that at a consistent number, but we do assess that every year. So there's the clarification of the few questions that we had.
Are there any additional questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. It's Chuck Rittenhouse, the principal at the high school. I am going to jump off. We have Keystone exams this morning. Thank you for your support. We really look forward to this in the fall.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item. That's going to be presentations, like I said, from Doug Taylor and Dan. So just a quick overview. Doug's presentation is going to go through the project update, the project schedule, schematic design budget, and then the next steps of where we're at. And then we'll hand it over to Dan, who will go through the design development drawings. So give me a second. I'm going to stop sharing. so that I can bring up, let's see. Hold on 1 second. Why am I not seeing this? Oh, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna hand this over to Doug, and Doug, just let me know when you want me to advance.
Okay. Yep, you can definitely go to the next page. It's a little slid down the screen here for some reason. I can't see the whole. Is there any way to? It's a little better. Well, okay. So thank you. So we are working diligently with Schrader Group and the district on the design phase of this project, and everyone is working well together. We've had many meetings to this point, and we are performing our due diligence. And the first item there are things that we've actually addressed. We've done the geotechnical investigations, infiltration testing, the test well and conductivity testing. We have confirmed that the site is a viable site to utilize the geothermal well field. So we're going to continue and expand that field that we have already. We've done some investigations of stormwater lines, the unit ventilator performance, and some existing utilities. So we're working on understanding the site the best that we can heading into this project. We've had the preliminary programming with the owner, with the district, and we had a couple follow-up programming meetings, and Dan can speak a little bit more to that when he presents the plan. We have completed the schematic design and design development phases. So now we're moving into the actual documentation and putting the bid documents together. The sustainable features continue to be pursued. As I said, the geothermal well field and the photovoltaic or solar panels as a series of probably 3 alternates on the auditorium roof, and then 2 other sections of the building, the low incidence art wing roof and the 3-story classroom wing. So we'll have 3 different areas that this could be expanded to maximize the amount of solar that we could add to the project. And we'll price that and make that decision later. We're also looking at some grant opportunities to offset the cost of the solar, which might make it a more viable option as well. And we meet bi-weekly, as I said, and we recently had a meeting with the Springfield Township Emergency Management Services Team, or STEMS as they call it. And we talked a little bit about how we're going to provide emergency access to the site with fire trucks and other vehicles. So that's something we're working on. Our civil engineer, T&M, is preparing an updated sketch so that the STEMS team can review that at their meeting in early June. But I think we came to a pretty good solution that was affordable to us and satisfies STEMS. And we're going to continue with some physical investigations. We want to make sure if we move forward with the unit ventilator package that things like the metal panels on the outside of the building are covering up old brick veneer, which have a steel lintel and a louver in them. And we have to expand the size of that louver. So we want to make sure that if that project moves forward, it's we understand the details and we're giving the contractors the scope that's required heading into that project. So you can, thank you. So from a project schedule update, as I said, the pre-design phase is complete. The schematic design phase is complete. The land development approval process is in the works. We did get the approval from the Planning Commission to move this forward to the Board of Commissioners. So that's something that we're working on documenting. But first, we needed to meet with the STEMS team to understand what was required so we could add that to our drawing. So in early June, we'll get feedback on that, and then we will document whatever changes are necessary and resubmit to the township to go see the Board of Commissioners, which we expect to see probably in maybe July or at the latest August, which is in accordance with our schedule. Also, the Montgomery County Conservation District approval process is in the works. They have reviewed the initial submission. They have a couple part process where they want to see the completeness of the submission. Once they do, and they almost always come back and look for some more information, Then you can formalize the submission, and that's looking to be submitted next week. So that's moving along well. And again, credit to T&M Associates and Schrader for working together to make that happen. And we moved into the construction document phase. So that now is, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page with this design development that Dan's going to present today. And assuming we are, we're going to go full steam ahead on documenting this project and putting bid documents together. So the bid phase is scheduled for, September to December. I think we're still on track to meet those timelines, and especially with the approval process, we need to get our land development approvals in place before we award the project. So we're working hand in hand with that. And we're looking to get this project started, end of December or the beginning of January 2025. From a budgetary standpoint, we don't have a budget update for today. We have received the design development documents from that we got just the other week, and we are diligently working on this update. Our estimating team is working on it. We've asked for some additional information. There's a cut fill analysis that helps you understand how much excavation is happening, how much soil can be reused on the site, and what might need to be exported. That all contributes to site costs. So T&M is preparing a cut fill analysis for us, which they need to do for the approval process as well. So when we get all the information in place, and we're still getting a couple little items resolved from a design standpoint, we will finalize this and be back in front of you to give you an update on the design development budget. So the next steps are to conduct any follow-up end user meetings or programming meetings that we had. So we sat with the staff and we talked about the different areas of programming. Schrader Group has implemented those changes on the drawings that was, were within the budget. And we'll get back in front of everyone and show them what those spaces look like and make any fine tweaks that we might need to after they see those spaces. As I said, the land development process, the zoning hearing board did hear us, and they approved our auditorium addition that goes over the setback line a bit. So that's been approved, and we're good from that regard. And we'll get to the Board of Commissioners soon and the MCC. Design development, we are performing a constructability review as well. So we'll take the set of design development documents that were shared. We have a team of people in the office that are all looking through those drawings, and we'll provide feedback to Schrader Group on any constructability items or any detailing or anything that requires some suggestion or maybe further discussion. And we'll share that with everyone once we complete that. Working on the site phasing now, now that we have a better understanding of what's happening from a mechanical standpoint. We understand that we are putting a well field in, so that affects how we manage the site. So we're working on that. And the design development budget, as I said, we'll continue to manage the budget, the approvals, the schedule, and the document review process as we move forward. And as I said, Schrader Group's working on the construction document phase, and I think it's been a very, very sound process. Everyone has been instrumental in keeping this moving, and we appreciate the district's cooperation.
Thanks, Doug. Yep. Is there any questions on this portion of the presentation?
I just have one. It's Eileen. I just have one quick question. It's kind of for half Doug, half Dr. Yannicone, just to make sure that I understand the timeline. Is there stuff going on this summer at the middle school?
There are, oh, I'm sorry, Doug. Do you mean programming, Mrs. Bell?
No, I'm sorry, like construction, because the ESY is at the middle school in July. So I was just trying to prepare myself for the drop off and pick up, and wondering if there's going to be like construction equipment or something that I'm going to need to relax for in advance of this in July.
Understood. Mr. Taylor can certainly speak to the specific phasing, but no, the short answer is there's nothing planned with regard to this summer that would interfere with the programming. But we have, as a design team, met every other week, and part of our conversations are about the phasing of the project and how we would move programming and make sure that students and staff always have safe entryway throughout the building, safe entry and exit through the parking lot, not only this summer, but also throughout the construction phases of the project all the way to finish.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Mr. Taylor, did I miss anything?
You didn't. Thank you for that. We will be documenting the project through the summer, and we'll be going out to bid in the fall for an award around December of 24. So the construction won't start until January of 25. So just so you understand a little bit, and we will at some point share those phasing drawings to whatever level Dr. Yannicone would like us to share and help you understand exactly how we've planned this together.
One of the things I'll just highlight for all members of the committee is that the middle school administrative team, who are all part of the design team, have been really doing a great job of thinking through every phase of the project and all of the student educational programs, extracurricular activities, and where we will need to make modifications and adjustments. And they've brought that information to the full design team. So it's been a good conversation over the last, I'd say, 6 weeks that we've started to get into some of that nitty gritty. And we will communicate at every phase. Both Dr. Fuller will communicate to families who have children at the middle school. I will communicate to the community at large. And then Mr. Taylor will make sure that we're communicating also to all the relevant township groups to make sure, like, for example, the safety and emergency management, so that we know that at every moment we have a clear plan on what's happening on the site. And most importantly, how to make sure that the students and the staff are safe at the site.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, at this time, I'm gonna stop sharing and hand it over to Dan.
All right, thank you. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right, thanks. So as Doug mentioned, we recently completed the design development drawings and documents and got them over to them to start the estimate. I think the drawing package was about 180 pages, and then we also have specification books that are about 1,000 pages each. I'm not going to share every page of this. I kind of picked the highlights to go through, but you can see on a cover sheet, you know, we're steadily growing the set, adding more and more detail as we get closer to the bid date. Starting off, as Doug discussed, the civil work, T&M has done a good job documenting existing features. So here you can see they're continuing to develop the demolition drawings, continuing to develop the site plan. And that starts to get into more detail. So like Doug mentioned, we met with the emergency management team and the fire marshal to discuss access around the building. So one of the things that the civil engineers will provide is an analysis of fire truck turning radius and access. So this plan we discussed with the fire marshal in depth and talked about providing additional access down the back side of the classroom and just kind of reinforcing the pathway that's there, maybe widening it a couple feet just so they can kind of bring the truck around towards the back and have access from a ladder truck to all points of the building. Again, they continue to develop grading plans, drainage plans, and I'll get a little more into this in a second. Utilities, so we'll continue to map existing utilities. It's always an ongoing process. We actually had a team out, I believe, last week doing some more confirmation of where rain leaders and stormwater drains are heading. The landscaping plan will be continued to be developed. And like Doug mentioned, the NPDS county conservation process. So that's usually the critical path for the land development. It usually takes the longest to get those permits. And like Doug mentioned, T&M's done a really good job of pushing that process along, looking to resubmit. But they work on the PCSM, post-construction storm management plans, which include all the different types of basins, the sizes, the details, and they coordinate that with the township and the county conservation district.
Just to add to that quickly, when we talk about basins, those are actually underground basins. We don't design basins that are large pond-like basins any longer. The water wants to try to collect in chambers and infiltrate into the ground so that we lose the water on our own site. So just a little bit of understanding on what the basins are.
Thanks, Doug, for that. And then getting actually into the building. So we'll continue to work on, this would be our code review plan. So we show the different fire areas, the different ways that occupants can exit the building. We're looking to set up a meeting with the code official, Mike Imperial. I had a call with him earlier this week. And usually we like to have just a high level conversation with the code officials to just review how we're interpreting certain code items, how we're, exiting people at the building, and make sure they don't see any issues with that. So when we get to the permitting process to get the building permits, we don't have any red flags or major changes. Sometimes there's just a few tweaks, but it's good to get it in front of them early and get their input on certain items. We'll continue to develop the demolition drawings. So you can see it's kind of small on the screen, but typically everything that we're demolishing will show up as a thick dash line, and we'll have tags for the different elements, different components. And a lot of this then kind of ties back and helps Doug's team with the phasing. It's easy to see which types of systems have to come offline at certain times. So we know, okay, this type of work has to get done in the summer because we're going to have to shut down these systems that service certain spaces. So it's really important for coordination to get these detailed. Doug, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, these are the drawings that we, in an effort to help a contractor understand the scope, what needs to be removed and what remains. And it's always a challenge because the contractors want to argue then that you didn't show a wall that might come down that wasn't dashed, but clearly does come down, right? So
Yeah.
These are those drawings that no good deed goes unpunished. So we have to be very careful with how we craft these notes so that we're suggesting most of the work that happens, but there could be work incidental to the demo that if it's not shown, they own it.
Yeah.
But it's necessary to prepare these. But these are those drawings that go into that sensitive piece of a bid process.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone knows that every time you open up a wall, you never know what you're going to find. And we show the wall stopping, X feet, but then just the way it's constructed, it's got to come down a couple extra feet. So we do our best to try to encapsulate all of that scope, like Doug mentioned. But there's always unforeseen conditions that pop up during construction.
Which is why we're big on trying to do these physical investigations early and understanding what is here so that when they open walls, we minimize surprises. So that's all I have.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, you can keep chiming in. You're adding good stuff. The exterior of the building will be continued to be developed. So I'll show a couple of renderings at the end. We'll give you a better idea, but we like to include these images in the construction set. They don't really tell the contractor how to build things, but it gives them a good sense in 3D what the overall building is supposed to look like. So it helps eliminate some questions. As we get into the plans, I'll kind of skip through the composite plans. Overall, I don't know that we had any major changes to the building design since the last meeting, but I just want to kind of, again, hit the scope. In the locker rooms down on the first floor, and I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but here are the locker rooms on the lower level. There's two little pockets of space that we're carving out to put in private changing rooms with a shower. So they're still in scope. Anything that's in gray kind of shading, that's existing building, and that's not in our scope. Anything that's in white is in scope. Over here down, this would be the existing stage off of the gym. Again, we're converting this to the fitness and health room. One of the changes that took place over the past couple of weeks was instead of having a fixed partition here, the team decided it serves the space best if we have an operable partition that can be collapsed, and that whole space can be opened up for different curriculum, different events for that fitness and health classroom space. And again, the addition we're adding for the auditorium includes a hallway connection that comes down at the end of the music wing. So the band and choral classrooms are here. At the end of that hallway, that loop will kind of be continued over to the auditorium. And then again, some ramping hallways that bring you up to the second floor or down to the lower gym level. On the main level, on this half of the building, again, we have the new auditorium. So like Doug mentioned, we've had a few more meetings with the performing arts folks, and we talk about the process of how they're going to use the space, where students are going to come in the morning and drop off instruments. So we have to make sure we're including instrument storage for any of the orchestra or string program. We have to have storage for props, storage for any scene building. But then we also get into the details of, okay, where's the AV closet? Where's the IT closet? And we start working with outside reps to design seating layout. So the seating layout is not shown in here. We're actually going back and forth, making some tweaks. One of the things that we talked about was bringing in a baby grand piano. So making sure that the school has aisles wide enough that a baby grand can come down and then live on the lower house floor, kind of the pit area. We work through all those details with a seating rep, and they do a layout for us with the different size seats and the offsets. And so everyone has a good view in the auditorium. Another tweak we made, I believe that you haven't seen, is we kind of took these series of entry doors and kind of turned them around the building. And if I go back to the site plan, you can see why we turn them a little bit. And it's not really reflected here, but that entry point is this point right here, if you can see my mouse. And what we try to do is turn that down to face the tunnel. So that's right here, that tunnel under 309. So a lot of students will come through the tunnel in the morning after getting dropped off by buses. And we kind of open that entrance to face them a little bit so they have a clear line of sight of getting into the building. Also, I just wanted to note that there's pathways that will take you around. We actually eliminated stairs, the stairwell that kind of brings you down to the lower baseball field. All of that is done with grading and a sidewalk path that'll bring you around the building, which is nice. Back. In the cafeteria and kitchen, again, we have the kitchen addition, and we've been working with Corsi. Actually had a meeting with Corsi, they're our kitchen consultant, to help lay out the kitchen equipment and kitchen spaces. So we've had a couple of tweaks that we want to do there. So they're not updated in this plan per se, but they're working well with the team at the middle school to figure out where the concessions goes, what types of spaces they need, such as offices, locker rooms, toilets. There's a janitor's closet back there, a washer and dryer. So we're working through all those locations with the consultant. And again, in our meetings with the staff, we talk about the main office. So the lobby is pretty much stayed as is. But there's been some minor tweaks to how staff and students circulate through the main office. We have the reception area in the top corner. This location is working out really well. They have a window line of sight straight out, and also windows out to where people walk up to the door. So safety and security wise, this is a really good setup. This was a good move to push them up into that corner and have as much visual connection to the exterior and visitors approaching the building as possible. The toilet room spaces in the classroom wing on each floor haven't really changed much. There's been some small tweaks to make sure that we have the correct amount of space for the electrical closet, custodial closet. But again, the number of fixtures that are being provided in these spaces match the current quantity of fixtures that are currently located in those rooms. I think it's 7 total in each bathroom. So we maintain that number. We've made some minor tweaks to the guidance clinical suite. and making sure that the offices have sufficient space for the types of furniture that the users would need in order to serve the students. So at this point, we don't really get into the actual furniture that's going into those spaces, but we got to make sure that those spaces can have room for a desk and room for a small table with a couple chairs so they can sit down with students and parents and discuss anything. And again, we have the renovation for the ramp. So probably a month and a half ago, we were out with the structural engineers going through, making sure any of these walls that we're taking down, and we bring our demolition plans with us to say, okay, hey, we're cutting a hole in this wall. Is that okay? Are we gonna, need to provide additional steel, or is there a concern that we're, cutting down a bearing wall? And so we worked through all that, and actually a lot of the stuff that we're doing wasn't really interfering with any existing structural components. So we're actually a minimal supporting structural steel that needs to be put back into these areas that we're demolishing. And again, one of the spaces that we've really been coordinating with the staff would be the apartment and the low incidence rooms, trying to get a really good understanding of how the faculty will use that space with the students, what types of furniture and curriculum they'll do in the apartment, cooking, cleaning. Do they need a bed? Do they need a couch for, a living room scenario? So again, we don't design the furniture, but we have to make sure that space can house all of this furniture and needs that the staff requires. Before I get any further, any questions plan-wise to any of the updates? All right. So I'll just run through again, just giving you guys an idea of what kind of detail we're going to put into the projects. We'll continue to add in different ceilings. So we design different ceiling layouts. We coordinate a lot with the mechanical and electrical engineers. You'll start to see some colored dash lines. So here we have some blue lines, some red lines, some green lines. Those indicate roller shades. So we coordinate, we have motorized shades here, and they're of a certain transparency. Usually the green in our drawings would represent blackout shades. So in a security event, a lockdown situation, you can pull the shades down and no one can see in if there's a glass window or side light into a space. And we usually coordinate that with the school district, and we'll bring that up at meetings to make sure everyone's on the same page. We'll continue to develop the exterior elevations. And again, I have a couple of renderings at the end. I'll show how those things are shaken out. We'll start to produce all the different types of wall sections that show how the walls are constructed from the footings up to the roof and all the details in between. We'll get detailed. Here's some toilet room plans and elevations. So any unique toilet room layout, we like to provide a separate plan and then views of each wall to show the different tile layouts. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll plan to have our finishes meeting. So our interiors department is currently working on getting samples and getting some ideas and renderings together to share with the team so we can get the exact color of the paints and the tiles represented in the drawings. Here's an example of a floor finish plan. So they use different hatches to illustrate the different types of flooring materials that are used throughout the spaces. They'll also use tags to note any accent walls and different types of paint colors throughout. The mechanical engineering and plumbing teams, they're furthering their drawings, and we'll coordinate chases and ceiling heights with them throughout. So here's an example of the mechanical HVAC system and ductwork plan. So to continue to lay that out. Again, with electrical, we'll coordinate lighting layouts. This shows power and data locations. We're coordinating the theatrical lighting and AV systems. So this is something that we'll go back with the performing arts team and have another user meeting to make sure that everything we're showing here meets their expectations for how they want to use that space. This is a plumbing plan showing the coordination we have between the civil engineers, T&M, our plumbing engineers, our kitchen consultant, all have to work together to figure out how to provide power, data, plumbing to all the different pieces of equipment in the kitchen, but then how that drains out of the building. Kind of this spaceship looking thing is a grease trap, the grease interceptor. So making sure that we take any of the grease, water out, and then have to bring it back in and connect to the existing system. So all that's coordinated with the different disciplines. And then we get to the exterior. So here's a shot overall of the whole building. You can see a pop-up here. This is the main entrance. So again, if we're looking Bergen Rose here, 309's down here, this kind of nub would be that funnel coming out. So back here, you see the new auditorium addition. And some of the changes we made, I'll get a little closer up, but we tried to lighten up the building a little bit. Before we were showing it all brick, it hadn't really been fully developed. But what we've done is kind of brought the brick down to almost like the door height, top of the door height, and then used metal panel that's similar to a material that's already on the building to help lighten it up and not have such a large mass. And here you can see that entry where it kind of fans out and opens up towards the tunnel for students to enter. Here's an updated rendering of the main entry. So a couple things that we're coordinating still would be, how this new lobby space interfaces with the existing library. So it's something that we'll coordinate closely with the structural. There's existing windows and a door here now that we have to coordinate with structural regarding these window layouts. So all those fine details start to really work themselves out in this next phase. And then this would be looking at that entry into the auditorium and then the auditorium beyond. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Dan.
Are there any questions with that presentation?
In past discussions, we had talked about a canopy for the buses. Is that back into the plans yet, or into the render? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So this was it's a placeholder. We're coordinating with the structural team to design a canopy. Really what we're looking to do, and this kind of shows a series of columns holding the canopy, with the parents coming up along that sidewalk and dropping off. We'd really like to try to do a cantilevered canopy. So the columns would be on the backside of the sidewalk, come up, and then the overhang is cantilevered over, and there's no columns along the drive aisle. And that just helps with circulation, people dinging their doors on the columns. It's a little more convenient for students to circulate down the sidewalk. So right now we just have a placeholder, but we're continuing to develop a canopy. It's definitely in the design, in the project.
Okay. And then those panels on the side of the building, on the side of the auditorium, are those painted, or are they in a position where they're going to weather well over time?
Yeah, similar to the silver metal panel that's already on the building. I think it's like a corrugated. There's some flat panel. This is a composite aluminum metal panel that's has an anodized finish, so it's not a painted finish. Even if we do painted, it's a Kynar fluoropolymer paint that will have a 20-year warranty for flaking, for chalking, and for fading of color. So typically we like to clear anodize. It lasts longer. There's less fading on those types of panels, and it matches a finish that's already on the existing building.
Yeah, all right, that sounds good. Yeah, I get concerned about that type of thing because I see buildings that are relatively new and they don't age well. So whatever finish it has should be somewhat timeless.
Yeah, we use a aluminum metal panels a lot on projects, and with the clear anodized, they look really sharp and they do last. We do like to keep them off the ground. So one of the reasons for having that lower brick, one, it kind of grounds the building. It allows the existing material to come in and kind of tie together, but it's more durable. When you take metal panel down to grade, kids throwing balls or kicking, lawnmowers, launching rocks will ding it up after a while. So it's good to have a nice, durable, solid base to help protect it.
Great.
If I could just jump in here for a moment, I wanted to thank Dan and the design team. I think that when we had some earlier renderings, and Dan mentioned this, the entire exterior of the auditorium was brick, and it felt heavy. It just felt heavy in appearance. The other thing is that it felt divorced from the academic wing in a way that we didn't like. And so we had some conversation about it. And the nice thing about this look now is it's going to tie the two ends of the building together really nicely from a design standpoint. And it's also going to lighten and modernize the look of that auditorium, not only on the side that is being shown, but also on the back end, on the baseball field side, which, Dan, I don't think you have a rendering of that today, but some of the conversation with the student advisory and then with our design team was adding some more natural light into that field side, paper mill side of the building. And so we're looking forward to that because it's really going to, again, modernize and lighten the look. And there's also the opportunity, as you see the windows above the entrance here, there are similar windows on the back side of the auditorium and the hallway that'll run along the health center. And that area, that's really going to bring in a lot of natural light. It's going to open up the space, make it feel lighter for the students and staff inside, and also have that better look from the outside. And I appreciate that they put the Spartan-ness on the wall.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Stop sharing now. Here we go.
Perfect. Okay, I am going to, hold on one sec, make sure I have it up. Yep. I am going to share my screen again and hand it over to Doug for the next agenda topic.
While you're doing that, can I just ask one quick question? I don't know if it's been said or not, so I'm sorry if I missed it. As part of these renovations, will there be signs so people know like where the new entrance is and where this is? Because I know sometimes, for example, when I'm in the pickup line, like I know buses are dropping off kids for like sporting events, and you can see the bus driver who's like from another township is like driving around in like the pickup line, and they're trying to figure out where to go, and there always seems to be confusion for guests or people who don't know where they're going on the site.
Yeah, well, actually, it's something we had an internal design coordination this week, and that was one of the things that I brought up to start coordinating with the admin team was site wayfinding signage. And there's different ways to do it, but we're not really changing the circulation too much. But no, it is definitely needed on site to be prominent, be clear of helping direct people throughout the site. So that is something that'll be included as part of the project.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Bell, I can also share that I think it's 2 years ago now, we added wayfinding signs throughout the outside of our campuses, in particular at the high school and at the middle school, and then also internal wayfinding signs for students and indoors, same idea for guests or for current students. And they've been really helpful. So we will continue to use that style. The largest wayfinding sign you probably pass every day would be as you are passing the White House, where my office is, there's that grass area to the left, and there's a large wayfinding sign that is the initial one for the middle school. And so we will absolutely need additional signage once the project is completed.
Thank you, because sometimes I've seen those buses from other townships try to go where we are in the pickup line, and then we all have to move and make the loop around because the bus can't fit, and it's very frustrating. Thank you.
Understood, absolutely.
Okay. Oops, I'm gonna hand this over to Doug for the next agenda item.
All right. Just scroll us to the next. There we go. Thank you. So the building assessment and capital improvement plan that we're preparing, we have had our team out and performed our site investigations in accordance with our schedule. So right now we're working on putting together all that information, compiling what we've collected, and we'll begin to develop the list by building, which we've actually started. And shortly we'll have our estimating team start to work on cost estimates for all the line items that we've identified. But we are on track to deliver this in accordance with this schedule. I just wanted to give you a brief update on that. Summer projects, we have the high school roof replacement, phase 2. And that was awarded to Jotten Roofing, and we did have a pre-construction meeting, and some of this predates Charles. So, you know, we're working together to manage these and bring him up to speed on what's going on. So he was involved in a second pre-construction meeting for the roof. We had the contractor back. So this is going to start in June. We've been processing all the submittals and other documents, and we're getting ready to get started on that shortly. The ramp, 8 Erdenheim Elementary School ADA ramp and the site enclosure project was awarded to TE Construction, and those contracts are finalized. We conducted a pre-construction meeting on site. We took a look at what was happening there. We had discussions about some of the soils exchange that has to happen as a part of that project, and they are prepared to start in June as well. The one thing I will say about this project is until all of the concrete is in place, they can't. So we have a full set of submittals for all the handrails, guardrails, and all those things, and we've reviewed those and returned those, but they won't fabricate till they can field verify dimensions on site. So once that concrete's poured, they'll field measure for their post locations, and then they'll fabricate. So that one piece of the project could push beyond August, depending on how quickly the concrete's placed and how soon they can field verify and then produce those railings. So the other projects that we bid a little late were the high school utility pole equipment replacement, which you guys had a challenge. I think a fuse had failed and lost 3 of the schools, and it was noted that that equipment was tired. So we did put that out to bid. We received the bids, and that is something that will be in front of you at the 21st May board meeting for approval. And we need to procure that equipment. It could be that that equipment is delivered in late August based on the procurement of that, but it is a weekend shutdown regardless. So that's something that won't affect students or staff. Will closely coordinate this with Charles and your district electricians so that when we take the power down and bring it back up, that we have your team available to perform a quick review of these 3 schools, making sure everything comes back online before we leave that project. So that's close coordination with you as always. And the high school track timing system power and data was also bid, and we will have that for you for the 21st of May board meeting, and that's scheduled to start in June as well. These are the bid results. I will tell you that I personally contacted 30, at least we sent it to maybe 50 electrical contractors. I called maybe 25 to 30, trying to shake the trees to get bidders. It's a tough time to bid projects. So we did get, we had 3 or 4 contractors that were in attendance at the mandatory pre-bid meeting, and ultimately 2 for each did submit bids. And the numbers are good numbers. So we did get competitive bids. A.N. Lynch is highly qualified to perform the pole replacement project. That's right in their wheelhouse. And Weiss Electric gave us a good number to do the turf field project. So we did get competitive bids. I did confirm the bid numbers with the contractors. And I will also say that each of these numbers has material allowance in that bid in the event that we would have any unforeseens to keep them moving So we're not holding up construction of around 30,000. So if that's unused, that gets returned to the district as a credit change order at the end. So there's an allowance, material allowance and contingency built into these. You can scroll. So there's a request for a fall project, which we're working on now in an effort to try to get a high jump and discus pad on the site of the middle school for the track season next year. So we are going out to bid the end of June, receiving bids in July, and looking for an approval in August for a fall project. So these guys would then come in and put the high jump and discus pad and netting in place before the winter arrives. Obviously, this is contingent upon their ability to procure that equipment and weather conditions, but we're making every effort to make this happen as quickly as possible. There's also a small piece of what I'll call micrograding. When we did the new track, we created positive slope from the infield to the outside of the track, and at the upper corner closest to the baseball field, there is an existing conditions. The earth slopes upward at the corner. So when the water sheds off the track, it's getting caught in that outside corner of the track. So we need to do some minor grading adjustments to get the water off the track and caught back up to the natural, not natural, it was a built-in swale on the site, but it seems to have over time built up some silt and created a slight berm that doesn't allow the water to drain. So as part of this project, it's very minor. It doesn't touch the track, just to get the water out of there. And that is all I had. I guess there's also a couple grants that we're working closely with Kara on in an attempt to try to get the district some money for the potential replacement of the unit ventilators at the middle school project and also at Erdenheim Elementary School if we were to consider replacing those which have a similar issue as the middle school UV. So that's something that we're working closely with Kara on, and we'll see if we're successful in getting those. That's all I had. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
And if you just give me one moment, I will get the agenda back up. Oops. And that brings us to our operational and capital projects update, which will be handled by Mr. Watley.
All right, good morning. We have the Enfield beautification project that will take place. That's that hill once you come off of Montgomery Avenue, I believe, just before you see the school. There's a hill on the right-hand side that is quite an eyesore. So we have plans to put some trees there, put some grass there, and make it as aesthetically pleasing as the school itself. District painting, I had the ability to walk with both the high school principal as well as the Enfield principal. We're going to start with the high school. Going to make it a more seamless process with hallways. Right now there's a gray side to some and there's a yellow side to some. So we want to make that fluid and focus on those areas as well as his office areas. Is when you go into the school, it's nice and modern, and then you go into the office and it falls back into the 80s. So we're going to bring that up. And we're going to work closely with CSG on our summer and deep cleaning projects. Going to make sure that we really manage these floors and bring them up to par with a nice shine and a nice glaze so that the area looks nice and clean and welcoming and inviting for both staff and students. HVAC maintenance, going to really dive deep into the noisy areas down in the middle school. Bob and I are working on that. We've already changed out all of the filters to make sure that our HVAC units are working soundly. And capital projects, we already have our high school scoreboard that is fully functional and operational. I think it looks nice. We've had a lot of great positive feedback on that. And as you can see, it was a sore eyesore for a while, but the facility salt bin has been completed as well. And I tried getting an S on it, but it wouldn't adhere to the material. So I'm sorry. I want to work on something else though. That's it for us.
Thank you, Charles. Are there any questions about the update that Charles just gave? Okay, and at this point, I just want to recap. We are asking for two action items. We're recommending two action items come out of this meeting for Tuesday's board meeting. And that, as Doug said, is the approval of A.N. Lynch Company for the utility pole equipment replacement. That bid came in at $88,000, and the approval of Wise Electrical Contractors for the track timing system for data and power, and that bid came in at $144,500. So those will be moving forward to the board meeting for full approval. Any questions about that?
That sounds good. I have one question, and I've taken this for granted for a really long time, but I've learned recently that responsible may not actually be defined when we talk about lowest responsible bidders. So, and I mean, I know we've done really well in the past with the contractors and whatnot, but how do we determine who's truly responsible?
Well, it's not easy in the public school world, right? If they're bonded and insured and they meet the criteria of that, it's difficult to reject a bid if they have, you know, the experience in the school world, if they have the bond that's required and the insurance requirements. And then it comes down to a discussion with the solicitor, and if there's a willingness to you know, reject that bid if you have concern. If you had somebody who you had working in the district in the past and they were problematic and you had, you know, legal challenges with, I think the solicitor would have grounds to say, you know, we should remove them. We've had bad experience, and, you know, maybe there's a chance, but they can, you know, they can then file a claim, and then there's an injunction on the project, and that contractor, no one can move at that point because they'll hold up the process. You can't award it to the second load till you resolve the issue with that contractor. And on these summer projects, you know, we usually do pretty well. I would say that's something that when we bid the larger project, the middle school project, it's even more concerning because you have multiple primes. And if you hold up one of the 4 primes that's involved in your project, the other 3 primes can't get started. And then it starts to, I'm getting deeper into this than probably I should, but then you have to worry about co-prime delays because you can't start your project in time, and you're holding up one contractor, and you're holding up 3 because you're arguing with the 4th. But let's just hope that we continue to get good, reliable, responsible contractors. Also, responsible means that they provided all the documents with the bid that they were supposed to submit. Their non-collusion affidavit and consent of surety and all those other things, which we check. So, and they meet the insurance requirements. So we carefully look at those things when we award, and we call references and we do those things to look after your interest.
And does any of that involve like looking into a history of the need for changes after bid? Anything about like, you know, how experienced their actual workers are, or, you know, like maybe the supervisor's experienced, but they've got some random worker that's coming in off the street and really doesn't have the experience that they should.
Right. So if we have a superintendent there are requirements in the documents for a superintendent who's managing the project, and we have the right to ask them to be replaced if you have that issue. Mm-hmm. If you have a contractor who historically there's all types of some are very easy to work with, others are more challenging. And we generally know who they are. And one of the many advantages of the team that you brought on board, one, we will put teeth in our documents to protect your interest in the front end. And Schrader Group does a really nice job putting together a complete set of documents. So if you have a tight set of documents, you have a much better chance of defending the district and supporting, you know, the rejection of extra cost and those things. So a good set of documents gets you far. You made a great decision bringing them on board. We will evaluate all costs and changes, and it's not uncommon that we'll reject requests for additional costs, but there definitely are contractors that utilize the CPM scheduling. They have programs, they can do claims diggers, they can do run all sorts of programs and schedules today. As you can imagine, technology, you know, can be good and bad. And there's programs to try to find those things, but we're well tuned with those things, and we'll, you know, look after your interest in that regard. They're great questions. I understand your concerns. They're ours as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've been relatively lucky as a district. I think the only thing I can think of recently in my term was relatively minor, but just the issue with the new tennis courts that have to be resurfaced already. Like even that's just like putting good money after bad in a sense. But I've heard other districts where, you know, HVAC contractors failed to do insulation and they're dealing with mold remediation and stuff like that on brand new construction. And I know like a lot of things like that, we just won't know about until the test of time runs on the buildings.
Well, I would hope that our field rep is observing those things and making sure, you know, again, you can only be in so many spaces at one time. And if somebody does something in a room when you turn your head, you know, but we have multiple inspections. We'll have testing, adjusting, balancing, commissioning agent out here looking at things for that in that regard. We'll be looking at things. We have MEP specialists that'll come in and do some investigation, you know, just some observations as we go. So we do all we can to watch. But you're right. I mean, when you're not looking, someone can do something, but we have a good team on board here. So we're going to hope that we attract the right bidders and we get, you know, a good team here when we ultimately award this.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Good questions, though.
Thanks.
Difficult questions.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move those two motions forward to Tuesday's meeting. And I did need to know who's doing the report on Tuesday. Neil?
I'm happy to do it unless Eileen wants to do it, but I'm easy.
I wouldn't want to take that away from you. Please feel free, Neil.
Nobody wants to hear me talk.
I do.
Okay,
right.
then we'll get the minutes out to you very shortly today.
Yeah, thank you. That always makes it easier.
Absolutely. Okay, if there's no other questions, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you, Dan and Doug, for your presentations on the middle school project and our ongoing projects. And thank you, Mr. Watley. This is your first meeting. So for your updates and all the work that you have done in your short period of time being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
nice
See
weekend.
ya.
Everybody, take care.